this is going to be impossible.
You can walk forward if you want to move it.
So I'm here at the IDR. All I've talked about the last week is microbiology of severe early childhood caries. You will be relieved to know that I'm not going to talk about microbiology today, but microphone. I'd like to point out one of my...
Close to your mouth.
Jeez. This
It's
is
tough,
harder. I am pleased to see that Jay Danzer's here. Jay was one of my mentors many years ago. So anything good that I've done, I attribute to Jay. So I'm going to talk off-label a little bit today. I am a pediatric dentist. I spent 4 years here at Boston's Children's Hospital. It's like coming back home. I was trained in hospital dentistry. So I'm going to talk about things that probably have more, I'm going to ask more questions, and I don't know the answers to. So, and that's why I'm here with a group of people who are experts in this. So these are some of my questions at pediatric dentist. We've been using silver nitrate for the last 3 years. We have an outreach program in Jamaica. I'm on the faculty. If anyone would like to lecture in February, I bet I have a lot of people who like to come in February who won't after this winter. And we also did a program with the Indian Health Service in Pine Ridge with Stan Brock's group that I've been a member for 30-some years out of RAM, the remote area medical. We put 100 chairs into the field when we moved. So we did some silver nitrate there, and Steve was kind enough to come as well. So I have a little experience. The way you know a real silver nitrate guy or a silver person, look at their clothes. I have a stain in this shirt, which is why I'm rolling it up. I'll show it to you later. Can't see this stuff, and then you send your stuff off to laundry, and it comes back, and she puts a little circle around and says, "You know, clean this shirt." Throw it away. I said, "That's a custom shirt." Okay. So, this Joel Berg's not here. He sent me. I used to be a consultant for SB, German company. I moved off the line already. Jeez. He sent me this book many years ago called The Tipping Point. I think you're at the tipping point. And I think people like Peter Milgram and Duffin at the grassroots level have raised this to actually tip. Because if you had this kind of seminar a couple of years ago, it was not welcome. It was not accepted. It wasn't even thought of. Indian Health Service gave me a run for my money too. Big time. Okay, so now here's some of those questions. You know the answers to this, but you know I'm just a just a pediatric dentist, and I think people should decide on what you're going to call this stuff, just because we're doctors. This was interesting. My good friend Theo Guchamanos spent a lot of time at Alabama. He's an Australian, and he did some interesting things. Now, I can't think of I didn't take PChem. You know, I took all the other chemistries.
Lucky you.
Lucky me, because that was too hard, and I wanted it. You know. So, but Theo looks at this stuff, this silver fluoride, makes sense. Why not just go right to it? Why put all these amines and stuff on it? Just go right to the source. Well, he did some testing on this, and he found that it was actually not what people thought it was, some 100-fold, 1,000 difference in concentration. I will tell you why that's important, but Theo, I think, was not always well received on this, but he was dead right. He's a good scientist. So there's some issues of quality control, if that's the right term. Again, I'm not the quality control guy, but I want to talk a little bit about toxicity, and this is like a very unpopular subject. And by the way, not always welcomed as well, but that's why we're here. We're going to stir up the pot a little bit. It's like taking on the Easter Bunny, you know, it's just, yeah, some things you don't talk about. You may have better opinions, and I'm asking this sincerely, in deciding what is a better way of skinning the cat, so to speak, and people are going to have their opinions as well. This is one of the pet peeves I have, and I'll give you some reasons for that. I've had discussions with people in this room about combining silver diamine fluoride, right, 44,000 parts per million, with sodium fluoride varnish, 5%, which is what, 22,000. Putting those two together, I will suggest to you that this is probably not a good idea, and I've seen it in print as being a proposal. I would love for Steve or someone to make a silver nitrate that sticks, as opposed, so, or more viscous, or something like that. It's just too watery. We ended, all our clothes have got little dark spots on it, so. Hey, is that what it is? I know Jay has some opinions on this as well. Is this what silver diamine fluoride is? Okay, just a question, let's just think about it. It's a nice looking molecule though, isn't it? I can't figure out the valence on this, so again, it was that PChem thing. You know, you've got the silver, we've got two functional groups, and then you got the fluoride. How does that work? Exactly. Peter, you know, right? You think? Okay.
I didn't do very well in PChem. I did take real cuts.
Okay. So again, I'm not just, I know I'm coming off as a smart ass, but and I like to do that actually, but I really don't know. And this is one of my favorite, because it's so attractive and so expensive and so difficult to bring into the country. I have to use my best friends and connections in Japan to actually bring this in a suitcase and give it to me.
Try Amazon.com.
Are you kidding?
Why?
Really?
They're big, so you should try it.
You can buy this?
I don't know, but if they
Oh,
can,
okay.
if they want to sell it.
That, I don't think so.
They do sell dental materials.
Okay.
They
See,
do.
we're just a learning process. But it's the bullet, right? Okay, and this has got some nice features to it as well. So this is, we've been doing some work with that as well. This is some work out of from Dr. Mays and group that I moved. Okay. We're talking about quality control and variation products. She did some testing. So she, right there. Okay. I shouldn't be talking about your work, but I think it was very nicely done. So I only show good stuff. That's why I don't show my stuff. But she did show some nice variation. Some variation. It's about 10–20% in those preparations. I would have expected silver diamine fluoride to get less concentrated with time or degrade. I would have expected that, but it's actually, as you can see, it looks fairly stable, but it's higher concentration than what we think it is. This all is part of this fluoride toxicity issue that I'm going to bring up. There is some variation. I don't know if that's standard, if that's considered proper quality control, but oh, I wasn't going to show this. You know how Duffin always likes to show Percy Howell and J.V. Black pictures, and a lot of them himself, mainly? I'm bringing my three boys, and because these are the guys who won the Nobel, and you know how they won the Nobel in the Meyerhof cycle, the Krebs cycle, and I don't have Otto Warburg there. These are German scientists from 1930. They all used fluoride, Jay, to that whole pathway. Yep. So, and what does it inhibit?
And they use 6 rats. Only 6 rats. It worked out the whole, most of what we know in the area of
Those 11 enzymes haven't changed since these guys in the 1920s. This is brilliant work. They did it with fluoride. The Germans knew fluoride inhibited enolase. They did the whole pathway. Enolase. Okay, so that's for you, Steve, dedicated to you. What handsome guys. Yeah, this is high science. This is why I had this stuff on my shirts. These are different oxidation states of sodium, silver nitrate, and you can tell maybe from the color that one is not coming out too well. All of these are effective. So what we did for our Jamaica outreach is, after spilling the solution all the time and trying to drop it in the school system and pews of churches, we decided we'd saturate the brushes first, dry them in New York, and then burn them that way, and just dip them in some water, and it worked really well for us. So that was easier than having our students spill it all the time. And in Mayhem, this turned out to be a better solution. So other people may have another way of doing it, but for us, it was really easy. Let me get into the topic I want to get into now. Those of us pediatric dentists, we give medications based on the weights of children. We always have done this, amoxicillin, chloral, hydrate. Most of the medications we use, we do it on a weight dose basis. So for a 5-year-old American child, which is a healthy, robust child, 20 kilograms, the PTD, that's the potential toxic dose, that's the lethal dose. It's potential because you don't know, every situation is different, is 100 milligrams. Now for a 3-year-old, we're talking 10 kilograms, a little bit more than 10 kilograms. Potential lethal dose, potential toxic would be 50 milligrams. These are figures that have been borne out. You know, Gary Whitford has done a lot of work with toxicity. And it's the same thing, 5 milligrams of fluoride per kilogram. Edwina Kidd in her book did this calculation as well. 4 mLs of sodium fluoride varnish. It's not much. Okay, you know these concentrations. Now, we can sit down and do the math. I've done this several times and check myself, but and it may not be realistic, but I'll tell you why. Maybe it seems like I'm a little bit high on the 4 drops and stuff. But oftentimes when you're doing, we found ourselves doing 4 quadrants, we couldn't do it with 1 drop, which is sometimes recommended. And we didn't make a big deal of how many, but now we were using silver nitrate. Okay, so anyway, you do all these calculations, you come up to something like 20 milligrams of fluoride if you use varnish with silver diamine fluoride. And this has been, I saw this on the WebServe as being a recommendation for low fluoride's good, more is better. 20 milligrams in a 3-year-old is coming awful close to a very serious dose. Now, one of the problems with outreach programs is we go from school to school, and we don't necessarily follow up. We do in Jamaica because we have the entire Ministry of Health right there with us. But a lot of the programs I've done with rural area medical, there's no follow-up. You move to the next village, you don't go to the next place. And so we don't necessarily check on our kids afterwards. And the question is this safe? Well, I love Colgate, and the people from Colgate have given me a lot of money over the years. They're right across the street in New Jersey. You don't want to get people in New Jersey mad at you if you live in New York, because you know Chris Christie, don't mess with these guys. So, but that on outreach for the for economics, we take it. Most people use it too. Now, how many of you can squeeze out 0.4 mLs versus 0.5? I would suggest to you that in the outreach type situation, you just kind of little dabble do you, but no one's measuring it out to 0.4. Colgate tells you 0.4 ml. They tell you, they're very aware. They calculate all this stuff, and they're very good due diligence. In an outreach program, we may not be squirting this out the way we should do it. The indication, of course, off-label. By the way, the reason that this is FDA pushed back on this is because of the high fluoride content. Make no mistakes about it. That's FDA continues as terms of off-label gets high. And the same with silver diamine fluoride. Am I saying anything wrong, Peter? Doesn't FDA have concern about fluoride in the silver diamine fluoride? 44,000 parts per million? Okay. Okay, that's a real big shake of the head.
I know the answer.
Okay, and so what happens when you swallow this? I've also been told you don't swallow it, and it's rinsed out. Well, in the outreach programs we were doing, we didn't have suction in water. We didn't have electricity. So not all of what's put into the mouth in these preparations, some of it's going to get swallowed in these kids, hydrofluoric acid. And again, I don't want to overstate this. I'm just bringing up as a controversial state because I don't know the answer to this. But how many kids, when they leave on outreach, these are malnourished kids we're treating. Malnourished. They're not 20 kilograms. They haven't eaten before they came. They come to us, they haven't eaten, they don't have a stomach full of food. And so you have to think about what they're swallowing. And, it's These are things that are in textbooks, so. But now, when I talk to my colleagues about fluorosis, and I was just talking to Steve Levy, spent a good amount of time with him at the meeting, people say, well, fluorosis is a little discoloration of the teeth, kind of white flecks. Both my children have fluorosis. But there's some things about fluorosis. It's really a form of hyperplasia, enamel hyperplasia. We've published quite a bit on enamel hyperplasia. It's a form of ameloblast arrest. When the ameloblasts are making enamel and odontoblasts making dentin, they become arrested. They're very sensitive to fluoride. And so there's definitely a clear correlation between fluoride dosing, timing, and the amount of damage. I've spent a year in China. There's areas that are endemic fluoride, that it's severe, and very, very, very severe. So I would tell you that fluorosis may in itself be a cosmetic problem, but it's a bellwether of cell damage. And this is being borne out more and more today. I was the last diehard fluoridationist guy in the world. Every anti-fluoridation thing that came out was dismissed. It still gets dismissed. There is credible stuff now coming out. And we're doctors. We know how to handle drugs. We do it all the time. We just need to make sure our dosage are appropriate for the children that we treat. And so I won't, this is Pam DeBeston's work. It's brilliant work that she's been doing, showing the effect of fluoride on tooth development. Again, it's not so much the tooth development that is a huge concern to me and other people, but it's a bellwether. It's telling you that cells are being inhibited. We just have to be mindful that the word slather was used in one of the websites, slathering. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that much slathering. There's some other papers you can look at. I'm not going to be the guy who necessarily tells you this, but these are Harvard public health people. This is the neurotoxicity stuff has really taken, has developed some legs. And these studies are not, I dismiss them because I can't read Chinese. So I'm kidding, that was a bad joke. They're all written in China. 27 meta-analysis studies in China. By the way, if you pick up Nature and Science, our best scientific magazines, who's the first author? Chinese. Okay, so I'm not going to dismiss the Chinese studies. But a lot of people do 27 studies, meta-analysis. You really should look at this. 2004, fluoride's just been moved up to one of the toxic substances with lead, mercury, toluene, do the whole list. Again, we're doctors. This is a medication. It's effective. I'm a fluoride advocate. But let's use it effectively, and let's not, and let's be mindful that in these young, underweight children, malnourished, that we treat them with the due respect we would do with our own kids. Be mindful of toxicity. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, thank you.
Went to dental school. Then I noticed that dental decay in Southeast Asia, I don't know the situation in I've been doing some mission, I'm a Christian, so I'm also doing some missionary work in Myanmar, Cambodia. And I noticed that the caries is a really serious problem in Southeast Asia. And you see, I noticed that in Washington Post, you have cases reported death of the children, right? Of a child, okay, in US. And I'm not sure whether there's other cases happening in Asia, or it's just because there's no news reporting in Asia. But looking at statistics, this is from the All Health Atlas at FTI, you can see the prevalence of caries is talking about 80 to 90% of all the children in most of the country. And it's the number one reason that children cannot go to school because of fever in Philippines and it's in Taiwan. In Hong Kong, it's quite well advanced. It's still the latest census, the latest report by the Department of Health. We still have 50% of children suffer from decay. And 90% of them have not been treated. Nothing, doing nothing on them. So, I did it. So this can be is a very serious problem in Southeast Asia, and not to mention about Cambodia, Myanmar, where the treatment is basically zero. Okay, no dentist, nothing. So what can we do? So that gives me a passion to continue my work on silver diamine fluoride studies. And this is a paper, okay, published in JDR by Rick, and I'm quite happy to find that in his literature review that they found that SDF is more effective than fluoride varnish and may be a valuable caries preventive intervention as well. The availability of a safe, effective, efficient, and applicable caries preventive agents appears to meet the criteria of both the WHO Millennium Goals and the US Institute of Medicine criteria for the 21st century medical care. I'm quite happy to know that. So this slide talking about some of the advantage of using silver diamine fluoride is very cheap, affordable, okay, minimal support required, and it's quite, cross-infection is also minimal, right? And it's a non-invasive procedure. Of course, silver diamine fluoride has some of the inherent disadvantage that it stains the tooth black, and it's an unpleasant taste. Some of the children, they have some gingival and mucosal irritation, which is not common. And also, there is also, if you don't handle well, it can stain your skins and your clothes, okay? This is a slide showing the, we are using in Hong Kong, the Japanese products, the Brazilian products, and the SDI in Australia is doing the, also marketing a new product called River. Okay, so I asked them to, in this meeting, actually they contain also 38% silver diamine fluoride, but I've never used it. This is a new product. I think it will be available in US soon. Okay, so this is a paper as Professor Peter Milgram, okay, on the effect, okay, whether it's safe or not. And then he found that it's quite safe on the use of silver diamine fluoride. All application, there's little chance of fluorosis, okay? And this case is actually treated by me. This child is referred to me, and when the child is referred to me, the whole hospital, no one knows how to treat it. It's only 14 years old, and it suffers from very severe graft-versus-host disease. The child doesn't want to leave. It's very severe disease, and then the mother talked to me. I understand my child may die, but please give something to let him to able to eat in the last few days. Fortunately, he's controlled and his life has been saved. And for our dental side, we put in silver diamine fluoride. It's only free application, okay, once per week. And then the result you can see, we can change this to this. You can see in this picture, when I try to retract the mouth, you can see blood coming out because of mucositis of all sorts of problems. But after 3 weeks, you can see the gingiva. I cannot brush, okay? But you can see that, okay? I suspect there's a change in microflora. And then you can see, I think you can tell from the color, it's become very black, but very hard. So subsequently, okay, the child is happy, then I'm able to put polycarbonate crown in the front and stainless steel crown on the back. This is the study that I did, okay, on children. This is a ground section. Okay, and I found that the micro hardness actually is higher than normal. This is the normal dentine. When you do the micro hardness measurement from outside to inside, you get this graph. You can see it's very hard on the outermost 50 microns of the lesions. And this is subsequently confirmed. This is done in 2007, okay? And then my colleague May followed another micro CT. You can see again, okay? There's increase in hardness on the outer lesions compared with an untreated lesion. So you can see the silver diamine fluoride application can really increase the hardness. This is measurement of the opacity on the outermost layer of the lesions. And this slide actually is an SEM micrograph comparing the dentine lesion. You can see this is a caries lesion before treatment. Okay, you can see the collagen is exposed, is destroyed, whereas if you put silver diamine fluoride, you can see protection of the collagen. You can see more mineral deposit on the tooth, on the caries lesion. These are on the caries lesions. And we also measure using EDEX. You can see there's increase of the calcium ion and phosphate ion on the outermost 100 nanometers. So, what are these products? Okay, what are these crystals? When you use XILD pattern, they are the hydroxyapatite. We can see it's not calcium phosphate, it's not whatever, but we can see by XILD is a hydroxyapatite, and this is confirmed by the 10 TEM, the transmission electron microscopy. We can see the ring intact, whereas you can see destruction in the caries lesion. So apart from the mineral content, we also look at the collagen part, the inorganic content, the organic content. You can see this is immunostaining. You can see you can have intact type 1 collagen stained by the gold particle, whereas the caries lesion, basically, the collagen structure are destroyed. So this is another study, simple. I'm sorry, there's a lot of studies, so briefly, I just try to talking out briefly. So we want to test the SDF, the effect on the collegiolitic enzyme. We can see silver diamine fluoride have inhibition on NMP2, 8, and 9. Okay, you can see the effect of NMP2 inhibition. It's not that good on silver nitrate. Okay, otherwise the silver nitrate works quite well on the other, but not on the NMP2. And this is another common enzyme that degrades collagen, the capsaicin. We studied on capsaicin E and capsaicin K, and in this particle you can see the fluoride is not that effective, whereas the silver is quite useful in the inhibition of this collagen degradation in dentine. So we talk about research on mineral part, also on the organic part. I want to briefly talk about the effect on the bacteria. The bacteria you can see, this is on this side. This is the bacteria, a biofilm of Strep gluten and Actinomyces. Okay. After the application, you can see this particle, okay, of silver here. When you use confocal laser microscopy, you can see all these are dead bacteria. Whereas you can see green fluorescence, that means the bacteria are alive. Okay, so you can see application of the SDF can kill the bacteria substantially. And also after the application, we put it in an artificial mouth, and you can see there's a confluent growth of bacteria, okay, of streptococci and lactobacilli with also Actinomyces. These are the common carcinogenic bacteria. But you can see with the application of silver diamine fluoride, you can see little growth on the dentine surface. So if you want to know more, this is the paper. We try to get all the paper is, you go to PubMed, and then you can, we try to make it all open access so that we can share what we found in the literature. So, so I know the time is not long, so just briefly talking about what we have been doing in Hong Kong. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chu.
So
My name is Rhoda Christensen, and I am a microbiologist, and I am going to talk a little bit about microbiology. I want to introduce you to my colleague, Brad Pfluger. Please just raise your hand, Brad. We've worked together very actively for about 30 years, but the last 10 mostly in dental caries. And this is why we're involved a little bit with Steve's work, and this is why we're here today. We have a situation where we're able to work in vivo. And so we have been able to culture lesions as they're excavated and harvest and cultivate and then sequence DNA from this material. And we've come forward with some organisms that I'm not sure I believe yet, but nevertheless have an ever-growing list. And as I sit here and hear all of you folks talk about what's going on, I too have worked in projects some time ago in Colombia and in India and a little bit in Africa, and I have not heard anyone yet here today talk about the cause. I feel that we're all talking about the remedies. The cause is added sugar in the diet. And when I see the kinds of destructions that you're showing on the screen, and I realize the impact of some of our large beverage and food companies from here in the United States on primitive and developing cultures, I think that honestly what we have aimed ourselves at is trying to address an infectious microorganism mediated disease process while allowing the population to continue in what's causing the problem. Now, I have heard us discuss biofilm or plaque removal, and that is important too. But there are different types of biofilms, different types of organisms, and I really think that a group like this needs to be talking about what is causing this. It is the guardians or parents that hopefully are starting to withhold some of these causative substances. You've also talked about methamphetamines and some of these situations, and that gets very difficult. But honestly, I do think that as people who work in dental research and in dentistry, I think we honestly need to be more proactive. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of do the last 10 years or so in risk analysis, and what we find as we approach people here in this country is that people do not talk honestly about their habits and their diets. They can't really deny visible biofilm on their teeth, but when we get into dietary analysis, they will look you right in the eye, very fine, good, upstanding people, and lie to you. And this definitely throws off your risk analysis. What Brad and I have found is that in our rich population, we actually have dental caries progressing right under our surveillance. We have been particularly interested in pit and fissure caries because this type of a lesion has been controversial. Controversial in that should we be excavating or should we be trying to arrest and remineralize these lesions? And so we began to seek out these types of lesions and see if we could understand what was really going on. And I'd like to tell you a few of the things that we found. Now, these are in vivo cases. We do not work in vitro. We do not work with artificial caries models in labs. We work with people. We're very fortunate to be able to do that in our kind of a situation and get past the various hurdles of legalities and so on. What we have found is that these lesions that appear to be non-progressing and very small are progressing, but they are progressing pulpily. And so therefore, on the surface, you cannot tell that they are progressing. They do not show on a radiograph. We have found one caries detection instrument that is actually a fairly, well, it's a laser. This would be the Canary system that is very able to look specifically at a very specific area, and we can see that it does find these areas perhaps better than others, but on the other hand, you can never find the same area twice. Repositioning is a very difficult problem, so to be able to actually watch these lesions over time is very difficult. I don't know how many of you have ever worked with trying to find the exact same position twice. I know many of you have tried to do that with radiographs and monitoring bone height in periodontal patients, and even trying to look at caries over time. And so I have this real concern that we're allowing the cause to go on. And I just throw that out to us, whether it's silver diamine, or whether it's silver nitrate, or whether it's fluoride, or whether it's a dozen other things. We have found that the types of products that are available in the U.S. for arrest and remineralization, if you release them into use in a real life situation, that they honestly are not any better than 1,000 parts per million dentifrice. And this is what the information that we brought to this meeting this year was a study with 328 kids. We were able to show a difference with Prevident 5000, either booster or plus, a 5,000 parts per million dentifrice, with releasing the kids to use it at home. But such things as amorphous calcium phosphate, xylitol, ozone gas, some of these other things, fluoride varnish, we were not able, when these products were actually released and used as they're used clinically, our part was simply to monitor what happened in these kids from before they were banded all the way through orthodontic treatment. The treatment was then discontinued when they were debanded, and we continued to follow them for a year. We call this accelerated natural demineralization. I'm sure all of you are aware of what goes on in orthodontics. It's a problem with oral hygiene, but it's also a problem with diet. And so with this, I'm going to end my comments, and I hope that this extremely prestigious group will not look just at treatment. You're criticizing fillings, and yet I stand before you with 50-year-old fillings in every posterior tooth that did stop what was going on, but the difference is I don't eat added sugar. I simply don't eat it, and I brush my teeth. So the restorations they have helped. I mean, let's be fair about it. And we're also talking about access to care. I look at what we have done in working with patients, and I see that we have offered access where people are afraid of pain, or people are independable. They do have ways to come. They have ways to make it to the movies and to do other things. They do have transportation if they want it. So there is access, but they don't take advantage of it. And so these are some other things that I feel that to be fair, we need to address, because you people sitting in this room have influence. And so I leave you with those comments, and thank you for the opportunity to do that. Oh.
We have two actually representatives of large dental practices who are dealing with a problem in the United States. And we're going to have someone from Willamette.
You're not an Oregonian. Okay.
I'm not an Oregonian.
It's the Willamette River.
Who's going to say whatever. This, you are,
Dr. Lyle.
okay, why don't you take it from there? Will you respond?
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Lyle McClellan. I'm official title is Director of Doctor Development, which really doesn't mean what it says, but I work for Willamette Dental. We're a large dental practice that has 50 offices and about 140 general dentists and specialists spread through 3 states, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And we have a vested interest in getting caries under control. And I'd just like to say that is, the more I learn about caries, the more I learn how complex of a problem it really is. And I think that whenever we have a complex problem, we need to attack it with complex solutions. It's not just a simple solution all the time. So all of these things, diet, oral hygiene, the right kinds of antibacterial agents, I think all of these feed into curing the disease. And I think that we need to look at all of them and use all of them. It's not that we can just find one. And I think that's where in the history maybe we've gone wrong, is fluoride came along and we felt like it was the solution to this complex problem, and it didn't do what it promised, and now we're finding that we need more solutions to this complex problem. We as a business have kind of made a business decision to use silver nitrate in conjunction with our fluoride treatments, especially on our kids and our geriatric population, so that they can, so that we can just get the disease under control. And from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, because if we get the disease under control and we make them healthy, that's where we make money. And if we can make people healthy and make money, that's a great place to be for both the patient and our business. We developed a protocol with Dr. Duffin, and our protocol is that we use 50% silver nitrate solution, followed by the fluoride varnish, and we do 3 applications, and then we follow that a week later. There's a week between each one, ideally, and then following the last week, we do a glass ionomer restoration, and that one is kind of up to the choice of the doctor whether they're using the Fuji 9 or the Fuji 2, whatever, as long as it's glass ionomer is what we're suggesting. And sometimes when you get a difficult child to work with, sometimes the Fuji 2 is the only way to go. And we developed a training program. We have a pretty good training department, and it's pretty robust. And what we did is we actually did a train the trainer model, and we had a webinar and brought in all of our managing dentists. Each office, each of the 50 offices has a managing dentist, and so the managing dentists from our offices in the area that we're piloting this or actually implementing at this point, we trained them on how to do this, and also trained them on how to train. They actually took extracted teeth, trained auxiliaries, as well as dentists. In Oregon, the dentists have to place the silver nitrate, but we wanted to make this a 4-handed dental project, so we wanted to make sure that whoever's setting up the silver nitrate is doing it in ways that they're not getting it all over their clothes, and also who's tearing it down is also not getting it all over their clothes. So we've trained the whole dental team through this process, with the managing dentist being the lead in that, using the materials that we've come up with. And we had them use extracted teeth. We had them do videos that we took at Dr. Duffin's office, and it's been a very successful training program. That program actually ended on the 19th of January, and we started doing the actual work. And to the end of February, we've done 106 applications. We had to actually develop a code so that we could track this. And I don't have any information at this point on whether kids have been coming back for 3 applications or whether they were 1 and lost to follow-up. We'll get that information as we go along, but the initial data is that we've been able to do it, and potentially 30 some odd kids have benefited from it if you divide it by the 3 applications. That's a good result, and we're looking forward.
It's gonna be Mike Shirtcliffe. Almost, we're almost on schedule. Thank you.
That mean I'm supposed to hurry up?
No. It's all evening out, just the way it's supposed to
I want to thank Steve and his crew for inviting me. I'd never been to Boston before. My wife had the opportunity to come with me, and so, oh, gotta stand right here on this spot. All right, there we go. Anyway, I've never been to Boston, Mass before, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. We scheduled a couple extra days so we could see a little history, and so I feel a little strange. It's the one that says Boston, Massachusetts in there someplace, if you can find it.
I got it.
There you go.
Bada bing.
Go to the next slide for me.
Here's the clicker for you.
Oh, all right. How's it work?
You press the button.
A lot of you guys know what the 100th monkey principle is. Do anybody know what the 100th monkey principle is? When information reaches critical mass, everybody knows.
Stand back.
Teach a monkey to sit on the
So on my desk back there is a smartphone. Does anybody not know what a smartphone is? Does anybody not own a smartphone? Does anybody in the world not know what a smartphone is? Even the folks we were looking at before. Why is it that everybody knows what a smartphone is? Because when information reaches critical mass, everybody knows. What I spend my time doing anymore is not talking to dentists. I'm a dentist. I practice in a third world country called rural Oregon. And this is what I see lots of. My company, Advantage Dental, similar to Willamette Dental, only Willamette Dental, I'm 3 times bigger than Willamette Dental. I'm in all 36 counties. I contract with all of Oregon's version of an accountable care organization called a coordinated care organization, and I take care of 320,000 rural Oregonians' Medicaid teeth in my plan. I have 34 of my own clinics, 300 owner dentists. We're a large IPA. We have 400 employees, and we have telemedicine, a wide area network. We do electronic health records, and we do all kinds of stuff. And what I started out was a little company trying to figure out how we could take care of cavities in rural Oregon and organize ourselves in a way where we could get enough money together so we could do it in a way other than chasing widgets. The bigger the widget, the more we got paid. It's transferred from mother to child usually, or mother to primary caregiver to child. And this is a 3-year-old. When I was a young dentist, I took lots of slides, and these are all my slides that I took. Somebody sitting in a chair, and I just went through them. And this is a 3-year-old, and here's a 12-year-old, or there's her lower teeth, and there's a 12-year-old, and there's a 20-some-year-old, and the only difference is they added meth to it, so they sped it up by adding meth. The typical meth is the Mountain Dew goes through the upper teeth, the acid goes through the teeth, dissolves your ganglia, enamel falls off, and it goes to the lower teeth. Where's the... Oops, now I forgot. Anyway, it goes to the lower, they lose the lower backbone. It goes across the tongue to the lower backbone. You guys all know about that. In my community, though, we had the biggest meth dealer in Oregon was from my community. It was my patient. And so then you have this, a little later, and then you have this. And then I had the opportunity to review a lot of slides and X-rays, and this is the solution to this is this, and this, and this, and these teeth are getting ready to be extracted. And so I'm in this rural community, and I see these things, And I'm supposed to, and I'm restoring as fast as I can possibly restore, and I get to do this. And then I get to take them out. And so I thought there had to be a better solution. So after 20 years of doing this, in this third world called Myrtle Creek, Oregon, where there was lots of loggers and lots of poverty and lots of poor people, and what we really had was lots of broken families and lots of people being raised, lots of kids not being raised very well, and lots of poor nutrition and lots of stores that had the same stuff that the nice lady put in there that they have in Ecuador in our community. And I thought we needed a new paradigm, because the restorative paradigm does not work in the presence of a disease that's out of control, in a population that doesn't have the behaviors to use the system we're using, nor the resources to use it. Even if the government helps them some, we need a different paradigm. This is, some of you might have read the book called The Business of Discovering the Future by Joel Arthur Barker. Paradigm is, you know what a paradigm is. A new paradigm is needed to solve the oral health problem for those whose dental infections are out of control, and thus ineffective to solve the problem with the replacement. I call it the replacement. So maybe we ought to look at it different. And that's what I just got here. Maybe we ought to look at this in a different way. And maybe we ought to think about assessing risk. And maybe if we did, maybe we could end up with this. So in Oregon, we're doing the grand triple aim. And better health, better care, and I call it a better cost. And so we have this grand experiment, Accountable Care Organization, going on, including oral health. So you have physical health, oral health, and behavioral health all in the same organization, working together to see if we can't make a difference. Don Berwick, a lot of you know, who started this concept, says the remaining barriers to integrated care are not technical, they're political. We have the science we need to solve this problem. You've heard a lot of it here today. The problem with it is we have a political system in our communities such that it doesn't happen. And one of the things I spend a lot of my time doing is sitting with the folks in Oregon, having debates over how do we do this different. Many years ago, Bob Barkley, who a lot of you, or if you're old as me, you remember, aid by its nature will flow towards the problems rather than towards opportunities. It will go where the needs are greatest rather than where the results are. It will therefore tend to create or at least perpetuate dependence. Reliance on aid also encourages division of scarce resources to the wrong project with minimal whose impact is minimal. Now, I'm a big proponent. In fact, I'm the guy that was at the same meeting that Steve was when we thought we were looking for other solutions. And so a big deal for me is having something where I can arrest the cavity without having to fill it. Because the cavity is, I look at the cavity as the symptom of an infectious disease. And so when I circle back to the 100th monkey principle, when I go to the community, what I hear the community saying is that we just need more dentists that can fix our teeth. And as long as we talk about, we just go to the dentist and fix our teeth, the information's never gonna get there that this is an infectious disease, and we have to approach it in a different way that has a really huge nutritional overtone component. Because the lady showed that when they had the appropriate nutrition, they didn't have any cavities. And so, as long as we talk about this as the solution is to having more dentists or junior dentists for fixing teeth, the information will get there and will never solve this problem. We all need to, in our communities, talk about this as an infectious disease. It's transferred from primary care to child, and when we start doing that, we'll start looking, when the information gets to the point that everybody in our community knows that, we'll have different solutions, my belief. Anyway, my goal as a business guy is to come up with systems. And what I tried to do is say, okay, I said, okay, if this is an infectious disease transferred from mother to child, where should we start? So one of the things we started is where do the people show up? Because they don't show up in our factory until they have problems bigger the problem, the more we get paid. So we sit around in our little factories waiting for people to show up. The biggest factory in our community is the hospital. The biggest little factory is the hospital. The bigger the problem, the place to show up. And so where do the people show up? Because they don't show up in our office until they have a problem. So, and if we knew where they showed up, and we sent somebody out there to look in their mouth, and we saw what the issues were, who would go look? What science would we use at that point, and what would be the appropriate thing to do? And so we started looking at, as a company, if our goal is to get, I want kids, if the goal is a cavity is a failed outcome, and a filling is a failed outcome, and we want healthy kids and healthy adults, and I'd really like to have kids graduate from high school with no decay, if that was my end goal, or 3-year-olds with no decay, or 6 years with no decay, whatever we picked out to do. If that was my goal, what would I do? Where would I go? What science would I use? And who would I have do it? And that's the approach that we're taking in our company. Well, as you know, there's a lot of barriers to that because, you know, the hygienist has a license to do this, the dentist has a license to do this. We have all of those issues that we have to deal with. And so you have to get engaged politically. And so whatever community you're in, you got to figure out what the political system is, and you have to have some system to get involved with it. And so I know a lot more about politics than I ever wanted to, but the rules of politics are, it's all personal and local. What do you want when you're willing to give up to get it, and never surprise your friends or your enemies? And so spend a lot of time, you know, have a full-time lobbyist and all the stuff you have to do. So what I'm trying to do is organizing my resources in a way that I can get the end goal, which is to have healthy kids with no cavities in their mouth. Now I'm just doing the oral health piece. When you're going to do the nutritional piece and the behavioral health piece, it's just, but I put together this timeline. This is conception to death. This is rest in peace. Conception to death. And basically all it is where do people show up, what science would we use, who would we send out there, what would we do, and every age. And so where do kids show up, where do pregnant women show up, and Medicaid show up when. So we ought to go down to WIC and look in their mouth and do 3 things: prevention, risk assessment, and evaluation. Next, where do they show up next? Show up at the pediatrician's office. How many well-being visits do you get in the first 3 years of your life? 12. How many do we need to be able to intervene in a way, and do a risk assessment to see who's at risk and what intervention would we do, and if we did that, who should do it? And where's the next place they show up in my town? Early Head Start. So somebody ought to go down there and look in their mouth and see what's going on. And if they have a brown lesion, which is a symptom of an infection, maybe somebody ought to intervene with the infection rather than with a drill. And so then where's the next place they show up? They show up at Head Start. Next place, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, all the way through. So wherever they show up, we gotta look. Well, where do the adults show up? Well, those of us that are independent, who knows? Who knows where we show up? We usually show up in the dentist because we know how, we can afford it, we have the resources, we have the discipline, and so we go to the dentist. So where do the other adults show up? Well, where do the mental health folks show up? People who are disabled, severely disabled, where do they show up? So what we do is we send people like Charity out there, who's a expanded function hygienist, round them all up, put all the charts into one place, get John Forcello to come down and help us, and look in the mouth, and let's manage those charts someplace else. So where do the people institutionalized show up? So we ought to go look and see. Do a risk assessment. Those that really look in their mouth. Are there interventions? We're giving a lot of xylitol to seniors, giving out a lot of xylitol tablets to people institutionalized, because what we found is it cuts down the plaque and it cuts down the decay. And to give it to them like medicine. So it's just a little bit of what we do, and we're trying to organize ourselves in a different way. And the way we can do it, the reason we can do it is because we get a block of money called global budgeting. You guys know one of the pieces of the global, of the triple aim is global budgeting. We get a block of money to allocate in a way that makes sense. Other thing I do, Dr. Milgram stepped out, but I hire folks like him to come and help me spend 8 years trying to get silver fluoride approved in the United States. And all the things you learn, and we did. Last August, I was the guy that put the money up, Dr. Milgram put up the science, and a lot of the rest of you folks helped out, and we finally got it approved, so the silver diamine fluoride could get approved. It's so ridiculous because silver nitrate and varnish seems to work. But our board of dentistry says, well, there's really no science on that one, so we ought to be using silver fluoride. If we had silver fluoride, we would let you use that. It's ridiculous. 8 years to go through bureaucracy to get something approved that does as much good. And all it is an antimicrobial. When you know an antimicrobial, when you sterilize a cavity, you add some fluoride and you add some calcium appetite from the saliva, you get remineralization. I learned that from you folks. The folks in China, I learned that from them. So it's just a matter of how do you put a system together, how do you get the financing for it, what do you want to accomplish, and then every day it's a problem to solve, and so every day you got to solve a problem. And the problem with it is it's a very complex system, and I saw some of that today. Where we, the politics get in the way, we position ourselves, we justify what we do, all kinds of things we do. That's the American way. I do know that there are a lot of things we can do that allow us to have healthy kids that we could work on. So anyway, that's what we do in Oregon. It's just a way, one old dentist way of trying to approach the same problem we're all looking at. Thank you.
I'm interested about cardiology. So let me start something like this. We should think about upgrade. So upgrade, usually if we have iPhones, we should upgrade the system. Also from iOS 7 to iOS 8 to iOS 10, Android, also ice cream to something like this. So we should upgrade our systems. You can't drive this car now in our road. So we should also change this. Also, this is during Plaque's era. We start this by finger, by pedal, by electrical, the primitive things. Now we have the chemomechanical, the lasers, ozone, something like this. So we should shift our looking or our perspective. So I have a very nice, this is a dental caries, and all of us know about the dental caries. It's a multifactorial disease. Bacteria is responsible, host also is responsible, diet and time. We can, if we don't apply the 3 circles together, without time, we will not have a caries. So all of this should be add together and interact, and we will have the dental caries at the middle. So the etiology, I will not go for this. Etiology, we have a pellicle, and the pellicle become infected, and so until we reach the pH. The lactobacillus produce some lactic acid and reduce the pH below 5.5, and this is a critical point. So during this, we classify the caries according to Plaque, then mountain stage, mountain Hume, which is second stage, and which was more descriptive. And now we are shifting to ICDS system. So ICDS system now is based in something like evidence-based. It's not a descriptive like mountain Hume. I will not go for Plaque because already Plaque is, we know every bit. So now second stage, 3 sites, 5 stage, and at this time we are thinking, we are moving from the Plaque era to something is called minimally invasive dentistry. So we have stage number 0, which is incipient lesion, minimal lesion. So we are moving our mind, but it's more descriptive. So shifting to the ICDS system, which is International Caries Detection and Assessment. So it is, we try to combine the clinical and the epidemiological studies together. We would like to find something standard between them. So this is the ICDS system. I will not, and this is how developed from ICDS 1 to ICDS 2 now. And this is a system. Usually ICDS system I respect because it based in something like histological. So I can say it's a sort of an evidence-based. So based on the ICDS system and the new system, we have 2 caries treatment models. The first one, the medical model, which is dependent on remineralization, topical fluoride application, Pitts and Fisher sealants when it is non-invasive. Sometimes it's moved to the surgical model, which is now dependent on the minimal invasive. So my father is a professor in the university in geology, and he teach me something in geology. They told that the present is the key, the past is the key of the present. This is something rule in the geology. So we should go a little bit to the past. The past here is from Webb concept to remove the caries. So it is 1883. Then we are shifting moving a little bit to Plaques, and we respect Plaque. And I have the chance in the University of Hong Kong to read. Oh.
Naughty, naughty.
Okay.
Sorry, sorry.
I have a chance to read the original text of Planck in 1936, and this is a page. And this, what I say, I will read it. In case should any decay and soft material be left, it is better to expose the pulp of the tooth than to leave it covered only with softened dentin. So this is what Planck say from his text. So I'm respecting Planck because Planck has only amalgam. This is the only option for him. And even he don't have minimally invasive caries removal agents. So moving to this concept, as they called it, extension for prevention. Then moving to the other in 1980s, they follow the same. In the middle of 18th century or 19th, also they have the same concept like Planck. Until also we have extension for retention. This is because also they have amalgam. Until this gentleman is come in 1980. So this is Fusiyama, and he put the milestone of minimally invasive dentistry. So this gentleman classified the caries into two layers. The first is the outermost layer, which is called caries infected dentin. And he based his classification on histology, and this is the base of ICDS system. The other one is caries affected dentin. And Fusiyama principle, which he is putting the caries removal dyes to leave the caries affected dentin and remove the caries infected dentin. So this is a milestone. Until this minimally invasive, until the three gentlemen is coming. This is Watson, this is, I'm not sure, he is from King's College, and this is Edwina Kent. So all of them are working in this, and they introduced the partial caries removal concept in 2000. This is approved from the FDI, I think it's presented in FDI, and before of it, they introduced the ART technique, traumatic restorative technique. So it is concept that if I have a high risk area, and if I remove the caries, even if it is caries infected dentin, and I will expose the bulb, it's better to leave it. And they promote it as seal is the deal. So sealing the cavity and leaving the bacteria, cutting the nutrition toward the bacteria is much better than exposing the bulb. It is completely opposite from Planck's principle, the first principle. So we are going to, I will leave the caries, but I can't leave without any management. So I can recommend either using three of these techniques. Using silver diamine fluoride, and now they have another thing to reduce the problem of the staining, using potassium iodide on top of it, using chemicals like cavity cleanser like chlorhexidine, and also we have a benefit that increase or decrease the degradation of the bonding. The last thing which I'm based, it is an evidence based from one of my studies, using resin modified glass ionomer adhesive, not a resin modified glass ionomer material, restorative material, it's an adhesive. And I will show you some of my results. This is published in Australian Dental Journal last April. This is the caries affected dentin, and this is the dentin, the sound dentin from the same tooth. I'm using usually chemomechanical caries removal because chemomechanical caries removal ensure that we leave the caries affected dentin. One of the most conservative was to remove caries. You can see here, this is the dentin, and this is, we apply an acid, then sodium hypochlorite after. So it is an acid-base resistant. This area is acid-base resistant. And Tagami, in his work, they call this a sober dentin. The same tooth, this is the sound area. Compare please the layer of acid-base resistant in the caries affected dentin and the sound dentin. So it is not comparable. I will show you in large scale. This is something is called montage. And we take the scan electron microscopy. You can see the thickness of this area. This is the acid-base resistant area. And compare the sound. When you go through this area and this area, the sound dentin is there. So imagine this is acid-base resistant. So this makes me changing my mind. Is it the fluoride working here, or it is the acid-base resistant area, or the acid-base resistant layer beneath the glass ionomer cement? So we know that glass ionomer have a problem. Caries is depend on the pH, the dropping of the pH. So if I have a layer which is acid-base resistant beneath the glass ionomer. It can resist the recurrence of the bacteria. So this can change my mind. And also we test some mechanical testing for this layer. It is, I'm not saying that it will reach the sound dentine, but it be between the soft dentine and the sound dentine. So moving to the other option, which we are talking here about, which I present in the IEDR, using is silver diamine fluoride. Silver diamine fluoride can solve this problem also. So silver diamine fluoride, I use the Rivastar. This is when I use the silver diamine fluoride itself. This is my finger. It's stained. So Knight from Australia, he developed a very nice technique. He put a potassium iodide on top of the silver diamine fluoride and make a precipitate on top of it. Something like, please, we can move this?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. So this is the application. This is the tooth structure. We apply the layer of silver diamine fluoride at the beginning. It's something like a varnish or bonding agent. Then we make a slight dryness. Then we, on top of it, put the potassium iodide. And if the color is fine, you will find the white precipitate. So maybe it's not, but here you can say some white precipitate, then we remove the excess. So this is Knight application. So this is what I present in IEDR. This solved me a great problem. In 2013, I presented in Seattle this study, and it's published in Journal of Endodontics, about the viability of intratubular bacteria after chemomechanical curse removal. I use, it's not my methodology, I use the methodology from endodontic. I just shifted a little bit about Streptococcus mutans instead of E. faecalis, and try to introduce the bugs or the Streptococcus mutans inside the dentinal tubules. And this is the conofocal microscopy images. You can see this is the positive control and this is the negative control. Negative control, I have no infection. So there is no fluorescence under conofocal microscopy. Here, when I try to introduce the bacteria inside the dentinal tubules, this is my positive control, I have no treatment. Then this is the sodium hypochlorite, the solution, and this is one of my group, which is Kerisol. If you can see here, there is no significant difference between the positive control and the Kerisol. Publicly, I have something like this. So I'm not presenting this data for this. I present that I have a problem in this group, which is the Kerisol. How I can solve it? I try to solve it using silver diamine fluoride. This is the same study. I'm repeat it again, but at this time I add Rivastar, which is silver diamine fluoride. You can see here the same result, the positive control and the Kerisol. It is almost the same. But when I add the Rivastar, you can see the amount of killed bacteria. This is the Rivastar itself. It's killed around 60% of the bacteria. Here, the publicly, it is also when I add it, increase or enhance its effect. You can say when I add the Rivastar, it's much better than add the chlorhexidine. This is the chlorhexidine itself. Even I add the chlorhexidine and Rivastar. Yes.
So when you say you add Rivastar, are you saying use the silver diamine fluoride plus potassium iodide?
Yes. Yes.
Both.
Yes.
Sequence.
Yes.
Did you ever do this study with only the silver diamine fluoride and no potassium iodide?
Yeah, because I use the system, it is now a commercially available system, so the commercial, I follow the instruction for them. So the instruction, they put the silver diamine fluoride, and on top of it, the potassium iodide. And I will report something also at the end. So this is
follow the instructions.
Yes.
I don't very often.
I will tell. So this is a published study. It is now online. I think this maybe 2 weeks before the IEDR, and this is what you can see the details in it. But I have a problem, and when we add the potassium iodide, the adhesion is a problem, because Knight claimed that in 2006 that there is no problem the adhesion of GIC, but I tell you, it is a problem. There is a problem, and we will present in London. I think Professor Barrow from the University of Melbourne will present this very soon about this. There's a problem there in the adhesion, and I think the adhesion, even I think the companies start to change their instruction. Just at the end of my study, I am exposed to something is called chemomechanical curse removal. I just will have this slide about the chemomechanical curse removal methodology. This is the curse. I apply gel, just leave for 30 seconds. It becomes turbid. Then I wash, apply second time, it's become turbid. until it failed to become turbid. This is my endpoint. So this methodology is very conservative with the caries affected dentine, and this I presented a lot before, and we have also a study on it in Australian Dental Journal, and we finally into this one. And finally, there are two types of caries removal methods. We don't apply any terpene or something like this. The first one, sodium hypochlorite based, is introduced 1976. The other one is enzyme based, which is introduced in 2003. And this is material. This is, I think most of you are familiar with this. This is the Caridex, which is sodium hypochlorite base, introduced 1984. Then we move into Carisol. Both of them are sodium hypochlorite base. And finally, we get something from papaya tree, and this is a papain, which is called papicari. I'm not, because this is the only product. I think 3M is preparing something about Biosol or something like this, but it's not commercially available. Thank you for your attention. And I'm waiting if any question I can answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, just come together. We're gonna do it together.
Come on, big guy. We are rebelling, and we deserve freedom from taxation from a king that doesn't care about us. Let's do it.
And we're in the home of Percy Howell, looking for the cure for caries, and we're throwing tea into the harbor to reach that goal.
Where'd the tea come from? Okay.
To freedom.
British tea.
Thanks, Jeff.